Hi, I'm Ryan DeVore. I'm the wildlife biologist based in Broadus, Montana, the southeastern part of Region 7 with Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. I just wanted to talk to you today a little bit about how the big game season went here in the southeastern part of the state. Today it's December 16th, just a few weeks after the big game season closed, and you can't really see behind me, but it's blizzarding outside, and so winter has arrived. And actually, for the last couple weeks, it's been pretty cold. Lows have been in the negatives and highs only in the single digits or teens for several of those days. So we'll see how the critters fare through winter, but I just wanted to give you a quick recap of how the big game season went and some of the observations that we saw. First off, it appears that our mule deer and whitetail numbers are very healthy. Our surveys from this past spring show that our mule deer population for the region is up about 47% above the 10-year average, so numbers are doing quite well. Our antelope are on the road to recovery, but they're lagging a little behind what the mule deer have done. Up in the Jordan and Forsyth country, or what would be the north and western part of the region, antelope numbers are coming back, but at a much slower pace and still have quite a bit to recover. However, down in the southern half or third, generally speaking in the Ekalaka, Alzada, Broadus area, antelope numbers are doing really well and have been for the last few years. And that's actually where we shifted most hunters when they called to ask where numbers are better or where they should hunt. We shifted most of those hunters down to the southern half of the region where there's better opportunity for antelope. And elk, as usual, as the last few years have been, they've been steadily increasing and also have been expanding into new areas of unoccupied habitat and that they haven't been in for several years. So it's a pretty good time to be out hunting in this part of the state, thankfully. In accordance with the numbers increasing for our big game species, we've also increased our licenses. For elk, we've increased some of our either sex licenses for rifle. And we also added a new cow license that's valid region-wide, except for the Forest Service and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service refuge areas. And that's mostly to help out private landowners where there's burgeoning local herds, as well as to allow more opportunity for sportsmen to harvest a cow where there's opportunity available. We also increased our mule deer B licenses, our doe licenses, if you will, and we increased some of our either sex rifle licenses for antelope, as well as our doe fawn licenses this year. One thing that we saw as a statewide is that our big game combination licenses ran out much earlier than in years past. Actually talked with some folks that either almost didn't get a chance to hunt this year or that just did not, just because they assumed that, like years past, they'd be available late summer or early fall. So next year, if you're interested in getting a regional doe license, or if you're a non-resident and want to get your non-game or big game combination license, make sure you do so either in the draw or go ahead and right after the draw, don't wait too long to get the leftovers. We also run 4 check stations in this part of the region. We run those on 4 weekends during the antelope and big game seasons. And our hunter numbers were up substantially this year from years past. And a lot of it has to do with just our increase in licenses, as well as our game numbers increasing. And then this fall was quite nice. The weather was very mild, not a whole lot of snow, so it was nice to be out chasing after critters. We saw really good harvest success from our hunters coming through the check stations. And even if they didn't harvest anything, most of them at least had an opportunity to get something they had a tag for. Most of those hunters and then our area landowners have been seeing really good numbers. The hunters as a whole were pleasantly surprised with the game numbers they were seeing. And additionally, our buck numbers are pretty phenomenal, as most folks saw. From our last season, post-season or after the hunting season surveys, we had a region-wide average of 38 mule deer bucks per 100 does. And for whitetails, it was 44 bucks per 100 does, which is quite phenomenal. We also survey our antelope in the summer, so that would be pre-season, and region-wide we had 60 antelope bucks per 100 does. So pretty phenomenal in terms of the buck opportunity. One thing that we noticed, as well as hunters and landowners, that there's a very high proportion of young bucks, at least for mule deer, in the population. And naturally, that's going to be the case. Typically speaking, there's going to be more young bucks than older bucks. However, that proportion seemed to be even higher than we typically see. And some of it has to do with a lag effect of a few years ago when populations were down. From about 2011 to 2013, our mule deer populations were quite depressed due to some harsh back-to-back winters. So during that time period, there were just fewer deer, and in accordance, fewer fawns born. Well, if you think back, those fawns born in that 2011 to 2013 era, there's just fewer of them, and those deer born then would now be in that 4 to 5 year old age class, and those mature bucks. However, so they're just kind of underrepresented. There's just fewer of them. But going forward, if we can, barring any major die-offs in these next few years, it's those 2 to 3 year old bucks now are going to become those 4 and 5 year old mature age class deer, and there's going to be lots of them. So it should be pretty fun hunting, and with the numbers the way they are, as well as these next few years, if we can get those bucks to survive through some harsh weather, then we're gonna be really walking in high cotton. I have a feeling, as long as we don't have any big die-offs, we could be seeing the 2017, 2018 as one of those eras that we talk about as the good old days. But as we wrap this up, we did have a good fall green up this year, and as I mentioned earlier, very mild weather. So the deer seem to be in really good body condition, and most hunters seem to think that as well. There's plenty of fat on them, and so I think they should bode well for their winter survival going in. But you never know what Mother Nature can throw at us. But like I said, we're having some cold temperatures and some snow right now. But we'll see how the deer and antelope fare. And another thing is that after the hunting season, we usually ramp up our big game surveys. So our biologists around the state are now doing flights for mule deer and whitetail, looking at our postseason buck to doe ratios as well as our fawn recruitment. And then middle of this winter, a lot of us will be flying our elk surveys. So if you have any questions, you can give your local Region 7 biologist a call or contact our Miles City office. And with that, I'll wrap it up and say thanks for watching, and hope to see you on the next episode.